Hi, I'm Daniel Gold, and welcome to the Gold Standard Leadership Lab. By day, I'm a partner at a leading advisory firm where I draw upon my background as an attorney to help my clients succeed. This podcast, though, is my personal project, completely separate and apart from my day job, but reflects the same passion that I exhibit everywhere for teaching, mentoring, and helping others succeed through simple, impactful lessons. It is my hope that you'll walk away with practical takeaways to help you on your leadership journey. Thanks for being a part of this community, for joining me in the Leadership Lab. Let's get started. Let me ask you something before we really get into this. When your team members wake up on a Monday morning, what are they actually thinking? Are they thinking about the clients that they get to serve? The problems that they get to solve? The people they get to work alongside of? Or are they thinking about the number they have to hit by the end of the quarter? The distinction matters more than most leaders realize, and that gap between going to work to produce a number and going to work because you believe in something is exactly what we're going to be talking about today. We're talking about what I like to call a team identity. What it is, why it is not the same thing as the culture slide in your all hands deck, and what you as a leader need to do about it. Now, I have said this before on the Gold Standard Leadership Lab, and I will keep saying it until it sticks. A list of core values printed on the back of a business card is not your culture. That is marketing. Culture is what the intern feels on day 3. It is how a senior manager treats a junior associate when no one is watching. It is whether an employee actually feels safe enough to bring a bad idea to a team meeting, knowing the response will be curiosity instead of dismissal. Culture is not something you declare. It is something that you earn repeatedly through behavior at every level of the organization. From the CEO to the person answering the phones, it permeates the physical office and the remote work environment equally. And it must be consistent within and outside the 4 walls of your organization. How you treat your employees and how you treat your clients should follow the same standard. If there is a gap between those two, your team notices it, and so do your clients. Team identity operates inside that cultural framework, but it is something more specific. Your organization may have one culture, but a team, a department, a service line, a practice area, each of those can and should have its own identity. That identity is the answer to 3 questions. 1, what do we believe? 2, who are we? And 3, why do we exist? Now, think about a great sports team. Not just a talented roster, a truly great sports team. The players have individual goals. Everyone wants to perform well, hit personal milestones, earn the recognition that comes with doing their job at a very high level. But as a unit, they share something none of those individual stats can capture, because they have a rally cry. They have one another's backs. They believe that what they are building together is bigger than what any of them could ever produce alone. And that is team identity, and the research backs it up. Now, we've talked before about Harvard Business School professor Amy Edmondson, who has spent decades studying what makes teams perform at a high level. And her work consistently points to psychological safety as the foundational condition. Psychological safety is the belief that you will not be punished or humiliated for speaking up, asking questions, or sharing ideas. When it exists, teams collaborate more openly, they correct errors faster, and they produce better outcomes. And when it does not exist, people stay quiet. They protect themselves and they coast. You do not build psychological safety through a policy document. It doesn't work. You build it through consistent leadership behavior, the same way that you build team identity. Now, as I often like to point to on the Gold Standard Leadership Lab about neuroscience, it is here equally compelling. When people feel a genuine sense of belonging to a group, the brain releases oxytocin, which is also sometimes called the trust molecule. Now, oxytocin increases cooperation, generosity, and pro-social behavior. Matthew Lieberman, a social neuroscientist at UCLA, has shown through actual brain imaging research that social connection activates the same reward circuits as food and money. In other words, your brain treats belonging to a meaningful team the same way it treats a genuine reward. That is not a metaphor. That's neurobiology telling you that team identity is not a soft concept. It is foundational to human motivation. And organizational psychology has known this for decades. The research draws a sharp line between intrinsic motivation, in other words, doing something because it matters to you, and extrinsic motivation, doing something for an external reward like a bonus or a performance rating. So extrinsic motivators work to a point. But intrinsic motivation, especially the kind that comes from feeling connected to a shared purpose, well, that produces sustained effort, creativity, and commitment that no performance review can manufacture. That is the science underneath what great leaders have always intuitively understood. Now, I want to give you a real example of what happens when a team does not have an identity and what it takes to build one. I was part of an executive team at an IT company. I came in shortly after an acquisition, which meant the team I was handed was a group of individuals who had just been absorbed from another organization. They did not know one another well. They did not know what they were collectively supposed to stand for, but they had skills, very good skills, and they had job titles. What they did not have was any sense of shared identity. This is one of the most common and most underestimated challenges that follow a merger or an acquisition. The financial model gets attention, the integration plan gets attention, but the people side, specifically the question of who we are now as a team, well, that often gets left for later. And later has a way of turning into never. My job was to go in and unite them, not through a team building exercise, not through a new org chart on a slide on an all hands deck, but by giving them something to believe in together. We articulated why we existed as a team, what it meant to serve our clients well, and why that mattered beyond the revenue line. Once people understood that, once they connected their daily work to something with real meaning, well, that dynamic changed. People started speaking up. They started covering for one another. They started caring about the outcome in a way that no individual performance target had ever produced. There is a book I've recommended on the show before, and I will keep recommending it. It is the book Raving Fans by Ken Blanchard and Sheldon. I get nothing from saying that. I just believe in that book, and if you have not read it, I want you to go out and get it today. Because the core of Raving Fans is built around 3 secrets for creating customers who are not just satisfied, but genuinely enthusiastic advocates for what you do. I'm not going to give you the full breakdown here because I want you to go read it for yourself, but the underlying principle is directly relevant to team identity. Great organizations understand why they exist. They understand why their clients exist, and then they deliver exceptional service and push just a little bit further than expected. And that last part, that extra 1% is something a team with no identity will never deliver consistently. Because going that extra mile requires belief. It requires caring about the outcome for the person on the other end. You cannot train someone to care. You can only build an environment where caring becomes the natural expression of belonging to something meaningful. The other book I want to highlight is Unreasonable Hospitality by Will Guidara. Again, I derive nothing from recommending this book other than the knowledge that you will be better off for having read it. Guidara built one of the most celebrated restaurants in the world, 11 Madison Park in New York City. And he did so by creating a culture where every single person on the team, from the maitre d' to the dishwasher, understood that their job was not a role. It was a contribution to an experience. The server was not just delivering food. The person clearing the table was not just cleaning up. Everyone was participating in something bigger, and they knew it, and they wanted to. And that last part is the secret that Guidara understood so deeply. The team spoke up because they felt heard. They gave suggestions because they had the space to do it. Their leader was actively listening, not performatively, but genuinely. And because of that, they showed up fully. Not because they had to, but because they wanted to. When I read Unreasonable Hospitality, it was the closest I had felt to the principles and Raving Fans in a very long time. Two very different contexts, a restaurant and a business strategy book, both arriving at the same truth. If the people doing the work believe in what they are doing and why they are doing it, the outcomes, well, they change entirely. Here's what I believe, and I want to be very direct about. If you cannot inspire your team, if you cannot lift them towards something beyond a paycheck and a benefits package, then mediocrity is probably the ceiling. Not because your people are not capable and smart and skilled, because most of them truly, truly are. But because without a shared identity, without a rally cry that means something, you are just managing a group of individuals who happen to share a reporting structure. And that is not a team. Great organizations are built by great teams. And great teams are built by leaders who take the time to answer the foundational questions out loud, consistently, and with conviction. Who are we? What do we believe? And why does what we do actually matter to the person on the other end of it? Think about this. If you were assembling a vehicle on a production line, there may be a family that drives that car safely for hundreds of thousands of miles because of something that you did. If you are developing a medical device, something may live longer because of the precision you brought to your work on a Tuesday afternoon. And if you are professional services, a client may make a better decision, protect their organization, or avoid a significant loss because of the work your team did. That is not nothing. That is literally everything. And your job as a leader is to make sure your team knows it, and they know it regularly. Not as a speech at the annual meeting, but as a consistent theme and how you lead every single day. If your team members are not showing up with energy, if they are not offering ideas, if they are not covering for one another when it matters, I want you to ask a different question than you might normally ask. Do not start with what they are not doing. Start with what you are not doing. Are you giving them something to believe in? Are you actively listening when they speak, not just nodding and moving on? Are you connecting their individual work to the bigger picture in a way that feels real instead of scripted? Are you creating the space where they feel safe enough to take ownership, voice disagreement, or bring an idea that might not work? Because that silence you hear when no one speaks up in a meeting, that silence you feel when no one goes the extra mile, that is telling you something. It is telling you that the team identity is either missing or broken, and that is a leadership problem. That is not a personnel problem. The same principle applies outward. If you are not serving your team fully, I want you to ask yourself honestly, are you also failing to serve your clients with the same depth? Because the two are rarely disconnected. The way a leader treats their people is almost always reflected in the way the team treats the people that they serve. So here's the challenge that I want to leave you all with. Team identity is not built in a workshop. It is not the result of a team charter exercise on a Friday afternoon. It is built through consistent leadership, through clear articulation of purpose, through the daily practice of treating your people as contributors to something that truly matters. So here's what I want you to sit with this week. What are you doing today, specifically today, to create and reinforce within your team a feeling of unity, a feeling of belonging, and a belief in something far beyond themselves? That is where unreasonable hospitality lives. Regardless of your industry, your role, or the size of your team, it lives in the space between going through the motions and genuinely meaning it. And as a leader, you are the one who determines which of those your team experience. And if this episode connected with you, share it with another leader who needs to hear it too. And then go pick up Raving Fans and Unreasonable Hospitality. Read them back to back. You will thank yourself for it. And remember, leadership isn't about perfection. It is about progress. Take this lesson, put it into action, and continue setting the gold standard in your own life and at work. See you all next time.